When a backstage assault leaves one of WWE's biggest stars in critical condition, and his wife delivers a message so shocking that it leaves the entire wrestling world speechless, you know something historic just happened. Seth Rollins just crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. Finn Balor is fighting for his career. And Becky Lynch. She just said what nobody expected. This is the story that has WWE in absolute chaos. Welcome to Wrestling vs. CC, where we break down the moments that define wrestling history. What you're about to hear involves one of the most vicious backstage attacks in recent memory and a response that nobody saw coming. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story has layers that go deeper than anyone imagined. Let me paint the picture of what went down. It was supposed to be a normal night. Superstars were preparing for their matches. Crew members were setting up equipment. The show was running smoothly. And then, chaos erupted backstage in a way that nobody was prepared for. Finn Balor was in the trainer's room, getting taped up for his scheduled match later in the evening. By all accounts, he was focused, calm, and ready to deliver another outstanding performance for the WWE Universe. He had no idea what was about to happen. No warning. No indication. No chance to defend himself. The door to the trainer's room burst open with explosive force. And there stood Seth Rollins. But this wasn't the Seth Rollins we've seen recently. This wasn't the charismatic performer or the fighting champion. This was something darker. Something unhinged. Something that security and medical personnel would later describe as absolutely terrifying. Before anyone could react, before Finn could even stand up from the training table, Seth was on him. The attack was brutal, relentless, and according to witnesses, disturbingly personal. This wasn't about competition. This wasn't about championships or rankings or spots on the card. This was about inflicting maximum damage. Seth used everything in that room as a weapon. The training table was overturned. Equipment went flying. Finn tried to fight back, but the surprise attack left him defenseless. Seth drove him into the concrete wall. Then the metal storage cabinets. Then the floor. Over and over, with a rage that nobody in that building had ever seen from him before. The sounds coming from that room brought people running. Superstars. Producers. Security. But by the time they pulled Seth off, the damage was catastrophic. Finn Balor lay motionless on the floor, blood visible, his body positioned in a way that made everyone fear the worst. Medical personnel rushed in immediately. The severity of the situation became clear within seconds. This wasn't a storyline injury. This wasn't selling for the cameras. Finn was seriously hurt. Paramedics were called. Stretchers were brought in. And as Finn was carefully loaded onto the stretcher and wheeled toward the ambulance, the entire backstage area was in stunned silence. Seth Rollins was restrained by security, but he wasn't fighting them anymore. He just stood there, breathing heavily, staring at what he had done. And according to people who were present, there was no remorse in his eyes. No regret. Just cold, calculated satisfaction. The show continued because the show must always go on, but everyone backstage was shaken. Updates on Finn's condition were being requested constantly. Officials were trying to understand what triggered such a violent response. And then came the announcement that changed everything. Finn Balor had been transported to a local medical facility. Initial reports indicated potential head trauma, spinal concerns, and multiple injuries that would require extensive evaluation. The words, critical condition, started circulating. Social media exploded with concern. Fans were demanding answers. And WWE had no idea how to respond to what had just happened. But the story doesn't end there. Because while everyone was focused on Finn's condition and Seth's shocking actions, another element was about to emerge that would make this situation even more complex and controversial. Becky Lynch, the man herself, Finn Balor's friend and one of the most respected voices in all of wrestling, was approached for comment. Everyone expected her to condemn Seth's actions. Everyone expected her to demand justice for Finn. Everyone expected her to stand firmly on the side of the victim and against the aggressor. What she said instead left the entire WWE in absolute shock. Becky stood in front of the camera, her expression unreadable, and delivered a statement that nobody anticipated. Everyone wants me to condemn what Seth did. Everyone expects me to stand here and call him a monster, demand that he be suspended or fired, and rally behind Finn. But here's what nobody is talking about. Here's what nobody wants to address. Sometimes, people push you too far. Sometimes, actions have consequences. And sometimes, the person everyone sees as the victim isn't as innocent as they appear. The interviewer was visibly taken aback. This wasn't the response anyone expected. Becky continued, her voice steady and deliberate. I know Finn Balor. I've known him for years. And I know Seth Rollins even better. For Seth to do what he did, for him to snap like that, something happened. Something that we don't know about yet. Something that pushed him past the point of control. And before everyone rushes to judgment, before everyone decides who the hero and villain are in this story, maybe we should find out what that something was. The wrestling world immediately divided. Some saw Becky's statement as supporting violence. Others saw it as refusing to rush to judgment without all the facts. But everyone agreed on one thing. This was not what anyone expected the man to say in this situation. Social media erupted in debate. Hashtags started trending. Fans argued passionately about whether Becky was right to withhold judgment or wrong to not immediately condemn Seth's actions. And in the middle of all this chaos, new information started to emerge. Sources backstage began leaking details about tension between Seth and Finn that had been building for weeks. Disrespect behind the scenes. Comments made in private that crossed lines. Rumors of Finn involving himself in situations that didn't concern him. None of it justified the attack, but it provided context that complicated the narrative. Then came the bombshell. A video surfaced from earlier that day. Security footage from a hallway backstage. The footage showed Finn Balor and another superstar having a conversation. And based on the body language and the reaction of the other person, whatever Finn said was not well received. The footage didn't have audio, but lip readers online started speculating about the content of that conversation. And who was Finn talking to in that footage? A close friend of Seth Rollins. Someone who, according to sources, immediately went to Seth and told him what Finn had said. And whatever those words were, they triggered the explosion that led to the attack. Suddenly, Becky Lynch's statement took on new meaning. She wasn't defending the violence. She was saying that the full story hadn't been told yet. And as more details emerged, it became clear that she was right. Reports started circulating about what Finn allegedly said. Comments about Seth's family. Disrespectful remarks about personal matters that should have remained private. Crossing boundaries that even in the competitive world of professional wrestling are considered completely off limits. Again, none of this justifies what Seth did. Violence is never the answer. But it explains why someone normally so controlled would lose that control so completely. It explains why Becky, who knows both men well, refused to immediately pick a side. And it explains why this situation is so much more complicated than it first appeared. Now let's talk about what this means for everyone involved and for WWE going forward. Seth Rollins is facing serious consequences. There's talk of suspension, possible legal action, damage to his reputation that might never fully heal. Even if Finn provoked him, even if words were said that crossed every line imaginable, the response was disproportionate and dangerous. Seth will have to answer for his actions both professionally and possibly legally. Finn Balor, if and when he recovers, has his own reckoning to face. If the reports are true about what he said, he destroyed relationships and damaged his own reputation. The wrestling community has an unspoken code. You can insult someone's wrestling ability. You can question their spot on the card. You can challenge their character as a performer. But you never, ever bring family and personal lives into it. If Finn violated that code, he'll face consequences in the court of public opinion even if he was the physical victim of the attack. Becky Lynch showed incredible courage in not rushing to judgment, but she's also facing criticism for not immediately condemning violence. It's a difficult position. Stand by your principles and wait for all the facts, or give people the immediate condemnation they expect and want. She chose the former, and history will judge whether that was the right call. For WWE, this is a nightmare scenario. A legitimate injury from a backstage altercation. Complicated moral questions with no easy answers. A fanbase divided on who deserves support and who deserves condemnation. And all of it playing out in real time on social media and in the court of public opinion. The company will have to investigate thoroughly. Interview everyone who witnessed anything. Review all available footage, and then make decisions that will inevitably upset a significant portion of their audience regardless of what they choose. From a storytelling perspective, if WWE decides to incorporate elements of this into their programming, it could become one of the most complex and morally ambiguous storylines in recent history. No clear heroes. No clear villains. Just flawed people making terrible decisions and dealing with the consequences. But the real question everyone wants answered is, what happens next? Will Finn Balor be able to return to action? Will Seth Rollins face criminal charges? Will WWE suspend or fire anyone involved? Will Becky Lynch's relationship with either man be irreparably damaged? And most importantly, if Finn does return, what happens when these two are in the same building again? One thing is certain. This isn't over. Finn will recover, and when he does, there will be a reckoning. Either in the ring, backstage, or in some other forum. Seth's actions demand a response. And regardless of what Finn may have said, the physical assault cannot go unanswered. The wrestling world is watching. Fans are debating. And three of WWE's biggest stars are at the center of a situation that nobody wanted but everyone will be talking about for years to come. So Wrestling vs. Family, I need to hear from you. Do you think Becky Lynch was right to withhold judgment until all the facts emerged? Does knowing that Finn allegedly provoked Seth change your perspective on the attack? How should WWE handle this situation? And what should happen when Seth and Finn eventually cross paths again? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is a complex situation with no easy answers, and I want to hear different perspectives. Hit that like button if you appreciate us diving deep into the full story rather than just the headlines. And subscribe to Wrestling vs. CC because we're committed to bringing you complete, thoughtful coverage of the stories that matter. In professional wrestling, we're used to clear heroes and villains. Good guys and bad guys. Simple narratives that we can cheer or boo without moral complexity. But sometimes, real life intrudes. Sometimes, the story is messy and complicated. Sometimes, everyone is wrong and everyone is right at the same time. Seth Rollins attacked Finn Balor and left him in critical condition. That's a fact. Becky Lynch delivered a message that shocked WWE by refusing to immediately condemn Seth. That's also a fact. And somewhere in between those facts is a truth that we're still uncovering. A truth about boundaries, provocations, consequences, and the complicated nature of human relationships under pressure. This has been Wrestling vs. CC, bringing you the full story, the real analysis, and the honest conversations about what happens when wrestling intersects with reality. Remember, in this business and in life, things are rarely as simple as they first appear. Stay thoughtful, stay engaged, and keep loving this incredible world of professional wrestling. I'll see you in the next one.